What shifted?
Houses aren't selling.
Inventory.
Days on the market.
Okay, let's go one at a time here. What we say? We said, why, what has shifted? We said what?
Inventory.
Inventory.
Motivation.
Explain that deeper.
More inventory than there's been on the market in years.
Is that true of all areas, locations of Central Virginia? No. Okay. All right, what other items do we have?
Motivation.
Days on market has changed.
Number of price reductions.
Price reductions. Who here has asked for a price reduction before? Who has not asked for a price reduction before ever? All right, one. All right, everyone else is
Pro.
good. All right. Well, inventory, days on market. What has shifted in the market?
Motivation.
Motivation. Elaborate, Larry.
Market conditions can prompt people to speed up or slow down based on how they feel about these conditions, interest rates, inventory, stuff like that.
All right. Nate, are you back in here yet?
Yes, sir.
Have interest rates changed?
Slightly.
Elaborate.
Well, they vacillate up and down every day, but they're staying in a pretty tight range.
Right.
For the last 3 months, we've been in between 7 and 6 and 3/4.
Is that true the past almost 2.5, 3 years?
Statistically, yes. We've seen some ups and downs,
Yeah.
greater than that, but yes.
Yeah, but overall, we're still, I mean, the last couple of years have been,
Yes.
you know, ping-ponging back and forth between kind of two barriers right here, it's called between 6.5 and 7. So, when did you guys feel shift? Vacation season. Okay.
School let out.
School let out. Okay. Holidays. So all those are obviously factors of, you know, shifting market. You know, I used to call it, you know, kind of the seasonality of real estate. This is going to go back pre-COVID, so I've already got one in 5 years less. This is going to be how it was. I think from 2012 to 2020, we used to have winter was always very, very slow. Everyone was waiting for the spring market to come, right? So once flowers started blowing, rain started coming in, everyone says, hey, it's time for put the house in the market. You know, obviously, COVID changed a lot of that, where the seasonality got thrown out the window. But it used to kind of be, hey, we get the springtime, then we get summer kind of lull, and then we kind of ramp back up when school gets back in a little bit, and then it falls off really. And to me, daylight savings time is the worst time of year. Once that time shifts and it's dark at 4:30, 5 o'clock, I always feel like things kind of shut down then. And then you kind of right back into winter. It's kind of the ups and downs. Okay. How did COVID change all that?
Rates got real low.
Yeah. Low
Rates
rates
very low.
make it very easy for a lot of people to buy a lot of stuff.
Correct. Too. What did that do to Richmond?
Grew prices.
Prices went up.
Prices went up. Mm-hmm.
But the people weren't as restricted to where they could live, so there's more options.
Yeah. So, got a lot of out-of-towners that have made their way to the greater Central Virginia region, correct? Okay. A lot of that is going to be remote work. Has freed up people to kind of work a little bit from wherever right now too. And then also, you know, the price point of Richmond's gone up. Has it gone up other places over the past 5 years?
Yes.
Okay. So real estate to me is all relative. Depends on where you're at. It's all very local. People read a lot of national news, national stats. If you're scrolling through Apple News or Twitter or whatever that, you're not getting, you know, the Mechanicsville, Virginia market. You're getting the Washington Post, the New York Times, you know, LA stuff based out of these giant metropolitan areas. Is that going to be a different real estate market than what we have here?
Yes.
And with all those big giant real estate markets, what's the one commonality they all have that, you know, we don't quite have here in Richmond?
The luxury cities. People go there just because they can go to LA.
Yeah. It's kind of like, you know, the top 5 giant, biggest places we have kind of around, and the price points to live in places like that are generally higher or lower than Richmond? Higher, right? So if prices are going up in expensive cities, interest rates are going up in expensive cities, where does that push people?
Less expensive cities.
There you go. Richmond, less expensive, a lot of these, all right? I pulled stats here, I mean, up in North Virginia, average sales price right around now is close to $850, okay? Who knows what Richmond is around about?
450.
425 to 450 is what you can expect here. So that is literally half price, okay? So if you have people that are, you know, stuck in a house, there's a lot of people in Richmond who are stuck in houses because of interest rates or hey, it's too competitive, there's not enough inventory out there. You got a lot of people who are sitting around saying, you know, I'm not gonna move, does it make sense to move? People from out of town are having the same predicament, but Richmond's half price, all right? So while other areas, localities are all slowing up right now and feeling a big giant slowdown, Richmond's pretty insulated. You guys agree with that overall? Okay. We're not gonna see the giant swings here and there and other places take a dip. We're gonna catch people who are leaving there are gonna come here. So as you know, other cities may be seeing declining prices, Richmond's seeing increasing prices. We haven't had days on market here above 30 since February of 2020. Demand is there, correct? Okay. So we have a ton of demand, and what happened to our inventory? It has decreased for a lot of reasons. You know, I've been doing, I sort of, you know, I that joke running that if there was a household between 2012 and 2016 between $180,000 and $190,000 anywhere in the greater Central Virginia region, I sold it. That's all I sold. I sold first-time home buyer houses. That was my demographic that I was working with. I've had a lot of people been able to, you know, increase their, you know, what they got going on in life. They get new jobs, they get, you know, do whatever. They're able to afford more. They're able to sell that house, use that house as a launching pad to go buy the house number 2. There's a lot of people that are stuck. Okay, so if they're stuck there, they want to get that extra. They're in a 3-bed, 2-bath. They want to move up to the 4, 2.5. For them to move up from a 2.5 with 3% interest rate up to, and you know they bought their house for $185,000 back in the day. Now that house is worth $300 to $325 most likely, but the one they want to go buy, which used to be a $350 house, is now a $500, $550. Okay. Nate, I'm going to look to you real quick. Monthly payment wise on a, just say a, you know, I'm not going to do it, but 5%-ish down conventional loan for someone buying at 2.5% on a, you know, $200,000 house. Do some quick math in your head.
$1,800.
Okay. All right. 5% down at a $500,000 house. Let's say 20% down since they're using equity from house A to move the house B. 20% down on a $500,000 house at 7% interest rate.
Depending on the tax area, probably 25, 27.
Okay. We see a big, you know, increase there. And there's some people it's much more drastic than that if they're just trying to, you know, move from house A to house B and maybe they, you know, tapped into their equity or something like that. They don't have the time. I mean, you look at people who are, you know, potentially increasing their monthly mortgage payment by, you know, in some cases I've seen people who are double. Okay, is that a drastic jump for one extra bedroom? Okay, I think that's where we see a lot of the local people. They are staying put. About a third of the buyers we've had since 2020 are from not Richmond. They could be from other places in Virginia, North Virginia, which is a whole different state, pretty much, or just from a lot of these other big metropolitan areas. I've had people come from California. I've had people come from Minnesota, Florida, New Jersey. We have people kind of come from just about everywhere. Because Richmond is attracting a lot of just a lot of people overall. It's a great price point. What are some other highlights of Richmond? Why is it an attractive place to live?
So historical.
Historical, okay. Some people care, some don't care at all.
Diverse industry.
Industries. What do we have, Jeff?
Well, just diverse. We're not, you know, too dependent on banking or tech, or we don't have like any one industry. There's a huge variety. So, you know, if tech takes a hit, we still have power. We still have, you know, a bunch of different industries that kind of prop up the whole Richmond economy, I feel like.
Yeah, diversity is a great thing. Do that from a historical standpoint, from, you know, what we had business-wise going on. How many? Who knows how many Fortune 500 companies are based out of Richmond?
6.
All right.
32.
We had 8, but as this is off, and there's a couple other ones in here because they're not technically headquartered here, but headquartered here we have Performance Sport, Performance Sport Food Group, good guy. CarMax based out of here. Subject cars. Markel is insurance. We have Altria, which is all the smoking products. There's one I did not know, the ARKO group. They're a pretty cool company, supposedly. Dominion, obviously Power, Owens and Miners, Medical, General Financial. So just to Jeff's point, those are kind of at least 7 different companies. I don't know what the other one is, but
CoStar.
yeah, CoStar. They're not technically, I guess, headquartered there.
The Rogers
That's-
home team.
There we go. Making big time things happen. Yes, other things we've had come into Richmond in the past 5 years. CoStar downtown. That's a major player in the business. Amazon has built multiple, sort of headquarters outposts or whatever they want to call those things now that hopefully stick around and not just big giant warehouses for a couple of years and they're gone. Lego has moved here. Sabra Hummus. I'm not sure if there's any hummus people out here, but they do some stuff here too. Walgreens has a distribution center here now too. Mondalea's International. I'm not sure if you got any Oreo aficionados, but a lot of those are right here in Central Virginia. On that too. So we have a lot of industry, like to Jeff's point, it's a lot of different stuff. Okay. So that is also just attracting different people from different locations, different areas. So we're pulling people in to Richmond. Going back to, we have all this great stuff going on, but it's still quote unquote slowing down, and we have to talk about price reductions and all that going on. So who's here has had kind of in the past month or so listing they thought was going to fly off the shelves within it? Okay. What can we attribute that to? Jake, what's your
Location, maybe?
Okay.
It's kind of far out.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's probably big. I think it's priced right, but I think it's just kind of not near any shopping or amenities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Jake does not only does a lot of land kind of on the outskirts, a lot of construction. So that's definitely a factor. The further out you go, usually the higher days on market are going to be, correct? And we kind of agree on that from what Jake just said. Okay, Larry, why is yours sitting?
We got it under contract. We went under contract quickly, but the offer fell apart due to HOA and the stigma that it threw on the house. Took me back to the old objection handling days because maybe different for y'all. If you have a house go back on the market right now, it's not considered like the most positive thing in the world. They think that house is like dying or something.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of face-to-face, voice conversations with agents and stuff, get it back under contract, but had to kind of fight those battles.
Yeah, it's definitely something you got to kind of figure out and get through on a lot of this stuff is, flaky people. People have been gun shy for a long time too because, hey, it has been so difficult, it has been so tough, and, I think a lot of people are getting cold feet. Like, oh my God, this is a ton of money we're getting ready to go drop on this house, and it's in an HOA, and HOA suck. Dean, what you got?
I think, this really in a specific case, but when you're in a high demand situation, when there's super low inventory, people are willing to go to their second, third choice of location. Maybe they wanted to be in a certain place, but they can't find that, so now they go to the backups. And same with condition as well. So the house, maybe they wanted a Cape Cod, or maybe they wanted something they didn't really have to fix up, but because that's not available, they're forced into making choices on something that might not have been as nice or as a desirable location or whatever else. So now with a little bit more inventory, a little bit more choice, people are being a little bit more picky.
I agree 100% on that. Over the past 5 years, can sellers just kind of throw their house on the market without, even cleaning and get it sold? Is that still the case now? No. Okay. So these are some conversations we have to have with, especially with sellers, that hey, it may not fly off the shelf in 4 hours, and that's okay. Right? It's going to be a little bit less common here to see that right now. So we factor in, hey, we still have high interest rates. It's the middle of summer, school's out, people are on vacations, whatever it may be. But it's okay if things sit longer than a week. All right. I've had multiple cases recently where we've had houses sit for 2-3 weeks, and then it's kind of like, hey, I'm like, hey, price reduction. Then we get multiple offers. After I had 19 days on market, we had 2 offers and sold $30,000 over this price. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but that's what you hope for. Making me look great to the seller who was ready to cut my head off there for a little bit. But, yeah, a lot of that too is, it's expectation setting with sellers, especially with sellers. We need to let them know, like, hey, here's the price, but we have a lot of external factors that, are out of our control. The one thing that we can control is price. If we want to get a house sold quicker, price is usually the number one thing that we can do to speed that whole process up, on it. And it also takes a lot of research. And I look at houses that, when I'm running comps and things, I'm looking at the original list price versus the list price versus the sold price versus days on market. Some of these houses will sell, day one, and they can tell they had 8 offers because they went, $25,000, $30,000 over list price. And when you have that, that is the absolute highest, best offer that house got. Okay, if people were competing for that house, if there's not, 8 buyers out there for that house sold 3 months ago, there's not 8 buyers out there for it now, maybe there's only 1 buyer for it, are they gonna get that still, top of the line, crazy over asking price? No. So a lot of stuff I've seen on listings and why they're sitting is one, they're overpriced for what they are. Okay, so I think the conversation to have, you gotta get listings prepped. We gotta get them cleaned up. I know new paint and new carpet used to be a thing that we used to push almost every single house. And we got either lazy or complacent, or we didn't need to, so we didn't have to. That stuff that's kind of got to get done now. You need to prep the house. We got to have it turnkey. I know that, I'm 35. I know that there are a lot of people you're younger than me, a lot of people are older than me. The younger people, this is, we did the whole generation class a couple weeks ago. A lot of young people don't know how to swing a hammer. They don't know how to, use a screwdriver to, replace a doorbell. Although, so when they see stuff, they're like, hey, there's projects here. They're kind of, all right, see you later. I'm gonna go over here, new construction. If I can afford it, but what happens on new construction? Prices are way up on that too. So they're way up. You're paying a premium for it. You don't have to do anything, which is great, but who can go afford it? Or who wants to, they're coming from a, quarter acre lot, and now they're on a 0.17 acre lot where they have no backyard and you're eating dinner on your back porch with your 14 other neighboring houses. So it's a big bugaboo for me, but people who are moving here, coming from bigger areas, they're used to being in a condo. They love their little tiny backyard, their, eco green lawn mower with the battery power that they can cut twice with and recharge their battery. To them, that's like paradise, it's heaven. Me, I'm like, I cannot stand that. I cannot, be that close to neighbors and that too. So those are the factors for the local people. It's kind of like, hey, you get to get less house, less yard for more money. You get a lot of people still sitting on the sidelines. I don't know when rates will ever break loose. But it also comes down to the motivation level of what we're having with, your clients. If they need to buy, why do they need to buy? Do they have to have the extra bedroom because they have, 4 kids in a 2-bedroom house? Not gonna work forever. You've got to find the motivation level of all these people, and you've got to drive that home at the end of the day. And being able to talk about all these different sort of things, everyone's situation is different depending on what house it is. If you're looking at something in South Chesterfield versus something out in Beaver Dam versus something downtown Richmond. All this stuff is local. We talk about, national stuff and local stuff around that. Richmond can even be broken down into even tinier pockets across the board. Area 20, who's familiar with Area 20? Okay, kind of Richmond from 195 out to like Willow Lawn area. Super high in demand area. They're still getting multiple offers on stuff. You also see stuff that will kind of be priced at the very top of where it probably should be priced, and it sits for a week. And then they have to do a price reduction there. So if you kind of miss your price in that location, you're off. All right, because there's still the buyer, still the demand, everything for that. And these are all conversations you can have with buyers too. Hey, if you're looking in this area, be prepared that you have to go. Still waive inspection, still waive appraisal. You better hope your grandparents left you a fortune to be able to buy the house. Versus you go out to where Jake is selling some of his properties further in the outskirts. Hey, get some closing costs. Okay, what are your buyers' needs? All right, we've got to be able to paint the picture for them to show them, hey, if this is what your expectations are, we need to shift them over here because you're not going to get what you want in this area. I got people that wanna be, you know, I got a girl who wants to be 350 or below. Her and everybody else. I got one come up off market that I won't tell you guys about, I'm trying to sell it myself for the next, little bit, but, a great spot for her. It's in her price range, and she wants to wait to save for another year, okay? Over the course of the next 12 months, I don't have the crystal ball, but our price is still probably going to increase. All right, she's kind of a, you know, semi first time, you know, home buyer. She saves up another 10 grand. Does it help her a whole lot if prices go up by 20? Some people have thicker skulls than other people. Yes. Yeah. And there's you know, Dean's the master objection handler. There's still gonna be people that just can't get through to them, and they're just never gonna see the whole picture. And my suggestion is find better people. A little bit as harsh as it sounds, I mean, there's motivation there, but this is something, you know, I'm not gonna, I have one set of clients that, you know, Corey and I right here been trying to work with for, 3-4 years, John and Kayla. And he knows everything about real estate, about markets, about whatever. He doesn't. Works for a training company. So this is also, you know, like, you know, guys, if you're the professionals and all this sort of stuff too, be able to talk with confidence. Obviously, clear doesn't work with just one guy, but you gotta be able to let people know, here's what's happening, here's the straight shot, here's what's going on, you know, this is what to expect, and simplify the process for them, all right? Everybody wants to get as much for their house. I want to sell the house for as much as possible too, okay? I'm a buyer side, a seller side. Buyer side, I want to beat them up on price and, you know, get you a full inspection, all sorts of stuff too, that's what's realistic, what's not realistic. As we talk about, you know, shifting markets, $1 million houses. How many of them, you know, pre-2020 do we have around?
4 or 5 a month.
Yeah, so I think, I pulled some stats here, they said, less than 200 a year in the greater Central Virginia region. Now it's up over, you know, 550, 600 of those a year, on it. Same time too, pre-2020, the square footage you used to get was like 4,500, now it's closer to 3,500. The 3,500 to 4,000 range. So you're getting, you know, you're spending more money, you're getting less house because there's more people who want to be in and around the area. But the good news is there's people with money coming into the area, which means there's good jobs, there's all this good stuff, and people are coming to Richmond. The conversation I have with a lot of people is get where you want to go now. I think waiting is the kind of one of the dumbest things you can do. Dumb's probably not the best word for it, but I think you're really kind of shooting yourselves in the foot on this. If you're sitting around and waiting for those examples I've kind of given, it's great for the people that have the house that, you know, want to move and go sell for, you know, top dollar. Hey, it could get, you know, $450,000 next year. That's great, wonderful. They can also go get, you know, the next house you're going to go buy is going to go from, you know, 700 to, you know, 750, 800. So you're kind of, you know, you're robbing Peter to pay Paul on it. I'd rather, you know, rob Peter right now, get your house sold, go buy your house, and then wait for interest rates to come down in 2 years. They've been saying for 2 years. Yeah, they come, if you buy your house right now, so you go sell, make the jump, you gotta take a leap of faith too. And say, this is, you know, where do you want to set your family? Where do you want to be close to your grandkids? You know, what is that overarching theme of why they plan on moving? If we can get them to the right spot and the right mentality, you just gotta kind of trust the process and go. Is it scary to sell your house and not know where you're going to go? Yeah. I, you know, personally wouldn't want to go do that here right now. It's scary, but at the same time too, if I have, like I said, a house that's too small and I want to get my kids into a different school district, then we need to drive that motivation level to get them where they want to be. Okay. A little bit on the buyer side, I kind of touched on a little bit. We have different pockets. You know, when people, you know, to Jake's kind of point, hey, people don't want to be so far out. What are their other options? They don't, you know, they're a 350 buyer and want to be in a, you know, want to be in a house. They don't want to drive far. Do they have other options?
Only around condos.
Yeah. Only around condos?
Condos, townhomes.
Stop by there, get $10 Starbucks gift card for 10 minutes. Yeah. So, Lindsay walked out, I was good for her, so she's fine. See Jack back there too, so we're all good there. For buyers, I mean, what are the other options? Not buy?
Keep that?
Keep renting. Okay. Who was here when Todd talked about staying around condos and also just the math of renting versus buying? Okay. If you've not seen that, I believe we have that one up on YouTube somewhere. Logan, that should be up there. That's a great one to go watch to show people the power of purchasing a home and the value you get long term in all this. Tax write-offs, all sorts of stuff. To me, it's also the people who are still renting are also kind of the hardest headed ones out there. They're the toughest ones to get the horse to drink the water. But those are also good sit downs for your coffees, lunches, stuff like that too. I've built my business on first time home buyers. If you plan on being in this business for a long time, grab every first time home buyer you possibly can, because those first time home buyers eventually turn into first time sellers and second time home buyers. If you do a good job for them, sold them a good house, that first house is now worth more than they bought for it, which means on the commission side of things, because we are all commission based. Means you're selling a higher priced house when they go to sell it, and they're probably most likely going to buy a even larger house. So you take that first time deal, you say it's a $300,000 house. I've been thinking of this, let's do it even simpler. That's a $250,000, which is, I know it's not really existent. $250,000 house, and they go to sell it for $350,000, and then they're going to buy a 6. So you took that $250,000 buyer today, and in 5 years, you're turning them into almost $1 million in sales, correct? Right. So don't give up on your first timers, but you need to probably have some real sit down, tough conversations of, hey, it may be smart to go buy a little bit further out, because in 5 years, further out may be a little bit relative. Far out, from 5 years ago is not really far out now. Keep on picking on Jake. I mean, how many people were moving out to Louisa 5 years ago, pre-COVID?
Well, I've only been in the business for 4 years, so I don't know the answer to that question. But I know a lot more people are moving there now than they were 5 years ago.
Like 4. Okay.
Yeah. 4 people.
Sorry, Will. Will was one of them. But so you look at those areas as outskirts of Richmond. It's like, hey, as Richmond grows, it's not getting smaller. People aren't leaving. It's only going to kind of expand out. So where is it expanding to? So maybe those first time buyers is kind of like, hey, you're not living in near West End. Sorry, get over it. But maybe you can live in New Kent. Does New Kent have a lot of good stuff going on with it? Things as Bucky's is going out there. I've heard a lot about it. My kids actually got Bucky's hats from their grandmother yesterday, which that adds more hats we don't need. That's what grandparents for. So, I mean, look at a place like, talk about New Kent, they're expanding 64 that way, aren't they? So as they're expanding out there, are going to be more people driving on 64? Hopefully better traffic will allow people to drive there without sitting in the sun in the middle of the summer. Airports on that side of town. There's a ton of wineries. There's a bunch of golf. You're pretty close to Williamsburg. You still have a straight shot into Richmond on 64. You're a little bit closer to the beach. It's pretty good. It's an area that's kind of slept on. I think it's our job to kind of open up people to, hey, what's coming next? We can talk about the stats from the past years, but what is coming next? Right? Other end of of Richmond here, Short Pump. What's happening in Short Pump?
Pushing towards Gucci.
Pushing towards Gucci. I think it's already in Gucci. There's a whole lot of new construction left going on in Short Pump and Rico portion. No, only thing that's really going up are apartments. I think Todd had the stat. There's only 1,300 approved units coming for Central Virginia as far as what is actually approved through the counties that's come down the pipe, which is virtually nothing. We sell 1,300 houses a month here in Virginia, pretty much. The monthly stats is right around there. So there's only 1,300 coming. Do we have a lot more inventory coming? No, which to me says go get a house if you do not have a house, or go get where you want to go, because there's more and more people here. They're going to be stuck in apartments that are eventually going to want to be home buyers, homeowners. They're going to be forced to go out and buy somewhere. They're going to be forced to go quote unquote overpay. They aren't overpaying. It's the market value of the house. It feels like an overpay because we were used to seeing prices from years and years and years ago. of what they are, now it's changed, it's drastic, it's a shock to the system. Then you throw in interest rates and monthly payments, and you said you're doubling, tripling monthly payments for a lot of these people. Eventually, they can't go live in a apartment forever. They need to find a house, or they're gonna need to go move out to, I just had people move out to Lynchburg. A little bit better price point out there. They get a little more house, a little more land, a little more space. Okay. Not that I want to ever see people leave Richmond, but that is a thing that happens. On it, just make sure you're able to have some referral partners out there, so you're collecting on the back end of that. If you have somebody head out of town, make sure you have an agent. Or I know Hometown's got the relocation services department of this too, where get them hooked up, make sure you're getting them connected, make sure you're getting compensated as they're kind of heading out of town as well. Other things I had on here, I covered most of the stuff. Let's see. Do you want to talk about price structures with sellers, people who have listings that are? I have one that's sitting right now. I think I've played mostly. Probably, clearly we overshot the price because it still hasn't been there, but it's got a converted garage into a pool table and bar room for all those single bachelors out there that want to be in a 4-bed, 2.5 bath. Not a lot of them, is what we found out on there too. But the conversation I have to have is kind of a lot of this sort of stuff. Hey, it's summertime, but at the end of the day, it's all kind of excuses because we've missed the price. We have it listed at $475. We've gotten one offer, been at $440. So right now her house is worth $440. That's a tough pill for her to swallow. So there's a house on a listing coming on down the street. We told the lady it was worth $450. She was kick rocks. She listed $475 and sold like that. Probably the entire thing. It was awful. It hadn't been updated since 1992, but somebody bought it because they saw the value in it. But it's tough for my seller to sit there and say, hey, that's similar square footage. It's right down the street. Mine's cleaner, mine's nicer. Why is mine sold? Like the garage, like summertime, if it's unique, people don't like it. Price. Those are tough conversations to have with people. To me, it's okay to let things sit for 3 or so weeks. Right now, before it's kind of like, hey, if you miss it, week 1, we got to make an adjustment because the 47 buyers just went through it, didn't like it, so we were way off on price generally. Here it's kind of like, hey, we can sit for a little bit, but it comes down to what is your pain tolerance? If we drop by $10,000 and she's got a $1,200 monthly payment, hey, do you want to, that's kind of 6 months runway for $10,000 bucks. Do you want to let it sit for another 2 months in hopes of getting the price you want to go get, or do you want to get it sold and be done with it? And she's already out of town and Stanton. So at what point does it come time to, hey, cut the price, put the pride away, and keep on move forward and get the house moved at the end of the day? That's the whole goal. We're not paid to list houses, we're paid to sell houses. So it's not just throw it on the market whatever price the seller wants to throw it on at. That used to be the market, but it's not anymore. I have the conversation with a lot of people is, I'd rather disappoint you today than disappoint you in 3 months. It's a very powerful one. They don't really, love it at the time, but that's kind of honest and true, isn't it? So we want to be honest and truthful with our people, and that's I'll still Nate's thing. We want to guide and advise people like family. We want to make sure that people are being treated properly and know what's going on, and the expectations are set that it's not going to be 12 offers, you may get 2, you get 2. That's oh yeah. I remember back then I were listing a bunch of stuff in the mid-teens, and people would say price is too low. Price is too low for the neighborhood, but then you get 3, 4, 5 offers, and it ends up and above, and it's very simple, clean, easy terms for your seller, and it's kind of the best deal possible. So, meet the pricing aggressively is the best thing you can really go do. It also depends on people's motivation. Everyone's got different goals, so we're going to find out what the goals are. We're going to talk about going back to figuring out what their desires, what their needs, what all that stuff is. For all people that want to, get a price reduction or have that tough conversation, how do you open that up?
In order to get a price reduction?
Mm-hmm.
I think you can set the groundwork in the initial appointment. You can say, hey, obviously we're hoping to sell this house, and with whatever our time frame is or whatever. But what do we do if it? What do you think the steps need to be if we don't do that? And you say, look, if it's been 3 weeks or 4 weeks on the market and we're not getting the traffic and we're not getting second looks and we're not having people bring their parents by and whatever else, what do you think we need to do? And let them tell you that in most cases, they probably say, something about dropping the price. And if they don't, then bring that up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, for mine, it's like the lady, this is the talk station won't sell. So we're probably gonna, if she doesn't want to come off the price, she's stuck on the price. We've had the conversation, we've got it down from $479 to $475. Before she got to $465, she's probably gonna want to repaint it and put new carpet in and leave it at the price that she wants to get. Is that an improvement?
Sure.
Have it sell faster, sell easier, make people feel better as they walk through the house. Yeah. Yeah, so those are little things you can do there, but to me, the biggest thing we do to start the conversation is, unless you haven't already, set the ground for it, is you raise your hand and say, hey, I made a mistake. We overpriced your house. Clearly, the market has told us that it's not worth what we're asking for it. We need to make an adjustment. This is where I think we need to go in order to best get it for you. And it may be a combo of price and based off feedback. We need to take care of a couple things in order to get the house sold more marketable. We pull it off for a week or two, get some things done, and put it right back on, and re-sign a listing agreement, and do the whole shebang again. That way, it comes on fresh on the market, it feels nice and new, and like that may be something you have to go do. Rodney's looking at me like I'm not supposed to just pull it off. Yeah, there's a way to do it. Like check it further. Everything as far as proper process to that goes. But yeah, man, a lot of it too is just owning up and saying, hey, I made a mistake. It's not the seller's fault. And it also just diffuses a lot of situations where if you admit fault, it may not be your fault. It could be the summertime. The rates could be whatever it is, but hadn't sold yet. That's on me. We got to make a price improvement to get this thing sold in a faster, better way. Okay. On that. What other seller conversations are people run into now with the shifting market?
I think you can get ahead of a lot. I mean, it depends on how someone runs their business. I don't feel like we have, as maybe a long time ago we did, but most of our sellers now we meet way early in the process. And so, like I think it was my Buffini coach years ago who said, essentially the dialogue is something to the fact of, if your referrals are waiting to the week before to call their realtor, that's the biggest mistake they can make. You want to meet them 3 to 6 to 12 months in advance. You go over there, meet with them, and then you say, hey guys, before I came over here, the range was X to Y. Over the next X amount of months, we're going to iron this out weekly. I'll send you stuff, I'll stay on top of it. And so that way they see all the pros and cons of pricing as you go. Typically makes conversations easier, but it depends how organized you can be to type everybody in the pipeline.
Yeah, if they're kept in the loop during that prep process of, hey, this house down the street just sold for X, this one just sold for Y, this one's sitting, how do the pictures look, how does this look, what do we need to do in order to put you in the best position to win? I think people want turnkey right now. I think that's what people love the new construction, because it doesn't do anything. People walk into houses that were built in 1995, like, God, this bathroom is awful. It's got a jetted tub with blown out black mold. It hadn't been used in 14 years. Everything's just, it's dated, feels bad. Gold's coming back in, but brass is still out. Whatever the bright gold stuff was from the early 90s that my parents still have on all their doorknobs. Those are some things that people just, they're not going to go through and change. And like little things can really throw people off as far as buyers go. And I think our job as agents working with buyers is we have to look past some of that stuff. Is the house in a good location? Is it in the schools you want to be? Does it have the right layout? Does it have a good roof? If you got to change doorknobs and carpet and paint for that, that's called being a homeowner. Okay? If we can get that stuff where it's fairly turnkey, the bigger things have been done and taken care of, then that's a good solid house, a good solid area. You're going to be okay. Look at Richmond's overall numbers. That's what a lot of houses in between 2020 and 2022 that weren't people's first choice, like Dean said. It was a choice, 5, 6, 7, 8 for some people. But they got a house and they were very glad they did. They may not love it, but they love their equity. Okay, they said we got to make sure this is framed too as an investment for people. This is not just obviously it's a house we live in every single day, but this is a investment vehicle. It's probably the biggest one most people are going to ever have. I'm going to have a giant 401k if they're first time buyers and that too, but that house turns into kind of a 401k if it's bought properly and taken care of and maintained. You're providing people with maintenance tips along the year to make sure they're getting stuff done, make sure they're in contact with contractors. You want to be the person they call for hey, I have an issue, okay? If we're staying in front of our people, we're able to have a lot of these conversations, keep them informed on the market, then it's just kind of run of the mill when you're having actual legit meetings about putting their house on or them buying, but you've been talking to them the entire time, okay? If people haven't heard from you in 6 years, then they might know what's going on in the market, and that's kind of on you. All right, so that's kind of the extreme ownership portion of it. You got to be informed, going out there and keeping them informed and being the knowledge, being the source, being the person they're getting the news from. Are they getting their news from, like I said, the LA Times and the Chicago Tribune or whatever it is out there? Well, I mean, those are things we got to just, see what people are reading, what they're consuming too. I sit down with appointments all the time. People are like, man, market sucks. I'm like, what market are you looking at? Because ours is pretty good. Your house is worth a lot more than it was when I sold it to you. Like, that's good, right? Market's good. Does it take 18 days to sell instead of 4? Sometimes doesn't mean the market sucks. The market's still in pretty good shape here in Richmond. You look at the year-over-year stats; it's still increasing each year. 3-7% kind of on. It's somewhere in that range, depending on what portion of Central Virginia you're in. It's increasing. It's going up. On your RAR panel, if you click on MLS, all sort of stuff too, there's a great thing I think everyone should go in and play with. It's called the info stats, I think is what it's called. It's on your main hub when you go to click in. It says matrix transaction desk showing kind of all sort of stuff. It's the second one. It's additional agent tools. It's called market stats. That is a great thing to go play around, especially if you've only been in the market for 4 years or 5 years or less, or been in for longer than that. It's good to go back and look because it allows you to be able to paint the picture in kind of number form for people. Like, hey, prices have increased by 47% since 2020 in Richmond. Okay, is it slowing down some? Yeah, sure, but it's still trending up. Yes. People still moving to Richmond? Yes. Okay. Are the people generally coming from higher income areas coming to a lower income area? Yes. Meaning they have more choice. They can go buy. They're the ones going to, they're driving the prices up. We don't love them, but they're also coming in here and they're spending money at restaurants and going shopping and everything else. So Richmond's growing. I'd rather be in a growing area than a dying area. Everyone agree on that? So Richmond overall market's great. And I think that's a conversation we need to have with the people we encounter on a day-to-day basis. I think we've got to be the kind of positive people on that. Is it hard to go do it? Yes. Is it worth it? Yes, literally and figuratively. Go get a house. Prices are going to continue to slowly go up. Jeff.
How about back to pricing houses? Let's say the house is, I don't know, in Rutland somewhere, a townhouse. Let's say they're selling for $375 roughly, and someone wants to get top dollar, right? They say, well, that one sold for $375. I want to sell mine for $375. How do you feel about the talk track? You can't underprice a house these days. Like, if you listed it for $350, people are going to see that's a good deal. You're going to get multiple showings and ideally multiple offers. And if the house is worth $375, the market is going to pay $375 for your house.
Yeah, I would rather buyers negotiate against each other than negotiate against me, the seller.
Right.
Right. So if we price it properly, now I'm sitting back and waiting as a seller and letting them duke each other out versus I'm putting at the top, and now I got people asking for closing costs. They're asking for, they're not going to allow the rent back, anything like that. Like I said, if you have buyers who are going there competing for each other, then that's what you want. So the goal is to try to find a way to get multiple offers, and the market will tell you what the house is going to sell for. If you're going to underprice something, we're going to say if we have 8 comps that are between $465 and $475, list at $350 or $450, whatever. I'm always up $100,000. If we price it, we just got make sure we probably take that full week and still put the clause in there where you can accept anything kind of anytime. I think that's a great clause. I've taken advantage of that one a couple times where people didn't know how hard they needed to compete and they competed too hard. And as a seller, I said, you need to sign off on this like as soon as your inbox. Because we don't have anything else coming and they just overpaid for your house, so sign it quick. But if we get buyers we want to create the pressure on them. So if we have it priced properly, that creates more pressure on them to, hey, we got to act fast. This is too good a deal to pass up. We have everything else in the neighborhood. We got to go get it. Whatever the seller needs. They need a rent back, it's free. They need No inspection, that's fine with me because I'm getting, I feel like I'm getting equity in the house. So I think that's the, I use the line of, I'd rather have buyers pay each other than us negotiating against everybody.
And then on the other side of that, like you listed at 350 when it could sell for 375 and it sells for 355, like, hey, that's the market. That's the value of your house.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no real arguing about it.
Yeah, and that's just that whole, risk of what their needs are. Do they have to sell it quick?
Yeah.
Or are they got a place to go? They're not super motivated. Like, I want people who are motivated to sell. But if they're just trying to, hey, I just want to throw it on there and see if I can get my dollar number.
Right.
Those are the tougher ones where it's kind of, hey, make sure you just have some clarification set, kind of like Dean said, hey, after, 2-3 weeks, then we're dropping the puppy down. We're not letting it sit in here, my signs are starting to fade in the sun. We don't want to have that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, pricing is important also, because keep in mind too, there's stuff that gets run up and above, that is the best offer they got. So we can't base our regular run-of-the-mill house off the absolute best offer that one got, because they priced it at $350 and they sold it at $375. That does not make us $375.
Right.
Okay, that was $375 for that one person. The other offer could have been at $350. Okay, now you put it on $375, and now you get crickets. And now you're playing the game of why is my house selling? Everyone's like, man, this house hasn't sold in 2 weeks. It must be a piece of crap. And then what do you get on that? Lower offers, right? More closing costs. Buyers. And I want those buyers that are like ready to go day one if I'm listing a house. You want that instant activity. If you don't get it, you got to just be prepared to, start handling a few objections. I was talking with Blakely Smith yesterday. He's got 2 houses out in Tappahannock. One sold 3 months ago, both new construction, right next to each other. One sold 2 months ago when it finished up. 2 days gone, quick. The other one finished up a couple weeks ago. Put on the market. Hasn't had a single showing. It's been on for 14 days, and he's like, "What the hell do I tell my seller?" So. And a lot of that it's some of the stuff we're talking about right now. There's the conversation you're gonna have. Hey, it's a lot of factors, but it comes down to how long you're willing to wait for the price you want, or do you need to get it sold? We need to drop the price in order to get it sold. Okay? So everyone's motivation level is gonna be different on it, and you gotta really kind of drive home what the motivation level is for them. Okay? What else we got?
It's interesting that you bring up Rutland, because when recently we priced a house, came great price, but then all of a sudden there's 3 on the market.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're like, people really do have that.
Yeah.
So and that was, we haven't seen that.
I just gotta adjust on it, and
Oh yeah.
there's still plenty of buyers out there, but it's tough for buyers. It's tough for buyers. I mean, so they look at what they're paying for it. Their monthly payments higher than they want it to be. Their out of pockets higher than they want to be, and the house is as nice as they want it to be. That's kind of what it's always been. Unless it was 2009 and there was 150 houses on the market and 2 buyers going through all of them. So I showed one guy in Michiganville. I showed him 47 houses, and they're all like deep Chesterfield, all these neighborhoods that were just built that then everything stopped and halted and crashed, and there's all these just big, giant, nice houses, and there's nobody to buy them. And we looked at 47 of them, and it was miserable, but a lot more choice. Back then, it's not what we have here right now. As much as the market has quote unquote shifted, it's still a seller's market. We talk about still days of market still less than 30, even markets closer to 180. That's always a good talking point too. On there, like, hey, this is still really, really fast in the grand scheme of things. So those are kind of the main takeaways on the stuff. Is be honest with your people, have tough conversations early on, set expectations, that way they know exactly kind of what to expect. If these been on the wrong market for more than 3 weeks, price reduction time. It's already set, it's already talked about. They may not love it, but they also probably don't love their house is still sitting on the market and they're getting, a showing every week, and they got to pick up after their dog or get the grass cut while they're out of town or whatever else it may be. They want to get it sold, and a lot of it just comes down to price. All right. They got anything else? Questions? Concerns?
Great job, Kev.
Thank you, Larry.
Here, Kev up.